I stood at the center of the reception hall, a swirl of laughter and music enveloping me like a warm blanket. My wedding day should have felt perfect, yet an unsettling anxiety crept in, clawing at my insides. I watched Theo, my husband, dancing with his friends, his laughter brightening the room. He looked so happy. And yet, I felt a nagging doubt bubble to the surface. Am I truly happy? The lights twinkled above, casting a soft glow over the crowd. Smiling faces surrounded me, but all I could focus on was the storm swirling in my chest. I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the feeling. "You're just nervous," I whispered to myself. "This is your day." But the words felt hollow. Then, just as I thought I might drown in my thoughts, I caught sight of Theo's best friend, also named Theo. He stood off to the side, watching me with an intensity that made my heart race. I had always felt a connection with him, a spark that I tried to ignore. Just as I turned to walk away, he approached me, his expression serious. "Alawan," he said softly, leaning in closer. "I can't hide it anymore. I'm in love with you." The world around me faded, the laughter and music becoming a distant echo. My heart raced. What did he just say? I stared at him, unable to form a response. Shockwaves rippled through my mind, forcing me to confront the fragility of my seemingly perfect life. How could this be happening? I was just married, and here was my husband's best friend confessing his love. "Theo, you can't—" I started, but he interrupted, his voice low and urgent. "I know this is crazy, but I've felt this way for a long time. I can't keep it to myself anymore." His eyes searched mine, filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. I felt my breath hitch in my throat. Everything I thought I knew was suddenly in question. "Do you really mean that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I needed to understand the gravity of his words, the implications they carried. The music played on, but it felt like we were in a bubble, the world outside our intense gaze forgotten. "I do," he said, stepping even closer. "I've tried to push it away, but I can't. Seeing you today, it makes everything clearer. I care about you, Elowen." A wave of emotions crashed over me. Fear, confusion, and something I dared not name. Could I really consider this? My mind raced with images of my life with Theo, my husband, the man I had promised to love forever. Yet, at this moment, my heart was drawn to another. How could I reconcile these feelings? "I need time," I finally breathed, feeling the weight of my words. Time to think, to understand what this truly meant. He nodded, his expression a mixture of understanding and longing. "Take all the time you need," he replied, stepping back. The distance between us felt like a chasm, and I suddenly realized how fragile my happiness was. What had started as a day of celebration now felt like a delicate illusion, ready to shatter at any moment. I forced a smile as I returned to the party, but inside, I was reeling. The laughter around me felt distant, as if I were watching a movie instead of living it. I glanced back at Theo, my husband, who was now chatting animatedly with his friends, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing within me. As I moved through the crowd, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Was I truly happy? Or was I simply living in a dream, one that could turn into a nightmare with just a few whispered words? The celebration continued, but my heart was heavy with questions. The night would hold more than just joy. It was the beginning of something I had never anticipated. As I stood in the corner of the reception hall, the laughter and cheers blurred into a distant hum. My mind drifted back to the early days with Theo. I remembered the first time he took me out for ice cream. We sat on a park bench, sharing laughs and dreams, the world around us fading away. It all felt so real then. But now, as I watched him dance with friends, his joyful smile made me feel a knot in my stomach. What had happened to us? "Are you okay?" A voice broke through my thoughts. It was Marie, one of my bridesmaids. She looked at me with concern. "Yeah, I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Really? You seem a bit lost," she replied, tilting her head. I shrugged, trying to shake off the feeling. "Just thinking about things." "Your vows?" she asked gently. My heart raced. I thought about the promises I made just hours ago. "I guess so," I replied. "It's all so new, you know?" Marie nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. I turned my gaze back to Theo, who was now laughing heartily with his friends. There was a time when I believed our love was unstoppable, but lately, it felt like we were just going through the motions. As the night wore on, I found myself slipping outside for a breath of fresh air. The cool breeze brushed against my skin, calming my racing heart. That's when I saw him, Theo, my husband's best friend. He was leaning against the wall, looking lost in thought. "Hey," I said softly, stepping closer. "Hey," he replied, his eyes locking onto mine. There was an intensity in his gaze that made my heart skip a beat. "Is everything okay?" I asked, sensing the tension between us. He took a deep breath, his expression shifting. "Can we talk?" I nodded, and he gestured for me to follow him to a quieter spot away from the celebration. The moment we were alone, he leaned in, his voice low. "I can't hide it anymore. I'm in love with you." Shockwaves ran through me. My heart raced, and my thoughts spiraled. "What?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I know it's wrong," he said, running a hand through his hair. "But I can't pretend anymore. I care about you, Alawan." I felt a rush of emotions: fear, excitement, guilt. "You're my husband's best friend. This can't happen." "But it's happening," he said, his eyes searching mine. "Every time I see you, I feel this pull. It's like I'm drawn to you." I stepped back, trying to process what he was saying. "But what about Theo?" I asked, my voice shaking. He sighed deeply. "I know, but I can't help how I feel, and I see you with him, and I wonder if you feel the same way." I shook my head, trying to fight the feelings bubbling up inside me. "I love Theo, I do, but you're not happy?" He finished for me, his voice soft. The truth hung in the air between us. I felt tears prick at my eyes. "It's complicated," I admitted. He took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. "Maybe it doesn't have to be. Maybe we can figure this out together." I wanted to scream at him to stop, to push him away, but a part of me yearned for his words. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in months. "What are we doing?" I whispered, my heart racing. "Just talking," he said, a small smile appearing on his lips. "But I want more than that. I want you to know how I feel." The weight of his confession settled heavily on my shoulders. I was caught in a storm of emotions, torn between my loyalty to Theo and the thrill of a connection I had never expected. "I need time to think," I finally said, feeling my heart ache. "Take all the time you need," he replied softly. "I'll be here." As I walked back inside, the laughter and music swelled around me again, but everything felt different. My heart was racing, and I knew that my life was about to change in ways I never imagined. The path ahead was uncertain, and I could no longer ignore the tension that had quietly begun to unravel my world. Standing in the dim light of the living room, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. It was one of those nights when everything seemed too quiet, too still. I could hear the clock ticking, each second echoing my turmoil. My heart raced as I thought about Theo, my husband's best friend. Our secret meetings had become a dance of joy and fear, and now the music felt like it was fading. I remembered the laughter we shared, the dreams we whispered in the dark. Each moment with him was like a spark, igniting feelings I had buried deep. But with every smile, the guilt wrapped tighter around my chest. "What am I doing?" I whispered to myself, feeling the tears threaten to spill. My heart was a battlefield, torn between loyalty to my husband and the undeniable connection I felt with Theo. Then came that fateful evening. Theo, my husband, had gone out with friends, leaving me home alone. I had planned to spend the night reading, trying to find some clarity, but instead, I found myself lost in thought. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. My heart skipped a beat as I opened the door to find Theo standing there, his face lit by the soft glow of the porch light. "Elowen," he said, his voice a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside, allowing him in, my heart racing with anticipation. "Sure. What's on your mind?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though I felt anything but. He hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. I've been thinking a lot about us." He looked up, his eyes searching mine. "I can't keep pretending that everything is okay. Not when I feel so much for you." My breath caught in my throat. I had known this moment would come, yet I felt unprepared. "Theo, we shouldn't." "I know," he interrupted, stepping closer. "But I can't hide it anymore. I'm in love with you, Elowen. I need you to know that." I felt a rush of emotions, joy, fear, and guilt all tangled together. "But what about my husband? He trusts us both," I said, my voice shaky. "I can't help how I feel," he said, his expression earnest. "I didn't plan for this, but it's real. Can't you see that?" In that moment, I felt the ground shift beneath me. I wanted to lean into the warmth of his words, to embrace the feelings that had blossomed between us. But the image of my husband, his laughter, his trust, flashed through my mind like a warning sign. "It's not fair to him," I whispered, tears spilling down my cheeks. "Life isn't fair, Elowen," he replied, his voice soft. "But we can't ignore this. You can't ignore this. I see the way you look at me, the way you smile when we're together." I turned away, feeling the suffocating weight of guilt. "I can't do this," I said, my voice breaking. "This isn't just about us. It's about him, too." "Then what do you want?" he asked, frustration creeping into his tone. "I want to feel happy," I admitted, my heart racing. "But I also want to be loyal. I don't want to hurt anyone." He stepped closer, his hand reaching out to touch my arm. "You need to decide what happiness means for you, because right now, it feels like you're stuck in this emotional labyrinth, and I want to help you find a way out." His touch sent a shiver down my spine, awakening desires I had tried to ignore. "You make it sound so easy," I said, pulling away. "But it's not. There's so much at stake." "Then let's talk about it," he urged. "Let's not hide from this anymore." With every word, I felt the walls closing in, and the heat of the moment began to ignite something deep within me. "What if we get caught?" I asked, anxiety creeping back in. "Then we deal with it together," he said, his eyes locked onto mine. "But we owe it to ourselves to explore this. What we have is real, Elowen." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words settle over me. My heart raced as excitement and fear danced together. I was standing at a crossroads, and I knew that whatever decision I made next would change everything. But the thought of walking away from him felt like stepping into darkness, without a light to guide me. "Okay," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Let's talk." And in that moment, I knew I was stepping deeper into an emotional labyrinth, with no clear exit in sight. I stood in the dim light of our living room, the air thick with the weight of my thoughts. The ticking clock on the wall felt louder than ever, each tick reminding me of the time slipping away. I was at a breaking point. I had to make a choice. It was a quiet evening, just Theo and me. He sat across from me on the couch, his smile as warm as it had always been. "You look beautiful tonight, Elowen," he said, his eyes sparkling with genuine affection. But as I looked into those eyes, my heart twisted. I could see the trust he had in me, the love he poured into every moment we shared. "Thanks, Theo," I replied, forcing a smile. But inside, turmoil brewed. I felt the pull of another love, a love that was both thrilling and terrifying. My mind drifted to the moments I had shared with Theo, my husband's best friend. The laughter, the whispered dreams, and the undeniable chemistry that sparked between us. "Is something bothering you?" Theo asked, concern etched on his face. I took a deep breath, knowing I had to speak my truth. "Yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately," I started, my voice shaky. "About us." His brow furrowed. "Us? What do you mean?" I hesitated, searching for the right words. "I love you, Theo. I care about you so much." The room went silent. His eyes widened, and I could see the flicker of hope mixed with confusion. "I love you too, Elowen. You know that, right?" "But it's complicated," I murmured, my heart racing. "I'm married to your best friend. I don't want to hurt him." Theo leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "But what about your happiness? What about us?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "This is so hard, Theo. I don't want to betray him, but I can't deny what I feel for you." "Then why are we still pretending?" he asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "We can't keep going like this. It's not fair to any of us." I looked away, my heart pounding. The weight of my choices crashed down on me. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to choose," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You need to decide what's more important to you, your loyalty to him, or the love we share." Tears stung my eyes as I thought of Theo, my husband. His unwavering love for me was like a lifeline, but I felt myself slipping away. "I don't know if I can do that. He trusts me, and I don't want to break his heart." "Then stay with him and live a lie," Theo replied, his tone softening. "But that won't make you happy, Elowen. You deserve to be with someone who makes your heart sing." I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling the coldness of my reality. "What if I choose you, and it all falls apart?" "Then we will face it together," he said, reaching out to hold my hand. "But you have to be honest with yourself first." His words echoed in my mind, and I felt the stirrings of a decision forming. But just as clarity began to emerge, I thought of the life I had built with my husband. The laughter, the dreams, and the love we shared. It all felt so fragile, like a house of cards that could tumble down with a single breath. In that moment, I realized the gravity of what lay ahead. I was standing at a crossroads, and every path seemed to lead to heartache. I pulled my hand away, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. "I need time to think," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "Take all the time you need," Theo replied softly, his eyes searching mine. "Just know that I will always be here for you." As I stood up to leave the room, I felt a sense of loss creeping in. No matter the choice I made, there would be no easy way out. I was caught between the love I had and the love I wanted. And with each passing moment, the choice became more unavoidable. The days following my decision felt like a whirlwind, and I was caught right in the middle. I stood at the edge of my living room, staring blankly at the wall. The laughter that once filled my home now felt like a distant memory. I could still hear the echoes of my husband Theo's voice, the warmth that used to wrap around me like a cozy blanket. But now? Now it felt more like a heavy weight dragging me down. "Hey, Elowen," Theo said one evening, breaking the silence that had become familiar. He stood there, his smile warm, but his eyes searching. "What's going on? You seem distant." I swallowed hard, my heart racing. "I'm just tired, I guess. It's been a lot lately." He nodded, but the concern didn't leave his face. "If there's anything you want to talk about, I'm here." I wanted to scream that everything was wrong, that I was the one causing this distance, but instead, I forced a smile. "Really, I'm fine. Just need some time to think." The truth was, I was drowning in regret. My heart was split in two, torn between the love I once felt for Theo and the wildfire of passion ignited by his best friend. Every memory of laughter felt tainted by guilt, and every moment of silence between us felt like a countdown to the inevitable confrontation. As I walked into the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I didn't recognize the person staring back. My eyes were shadowed, my spirit dimmed. How had I got here? I thought about the moments I had shared with Theo, my husband, and I felt a pang of sadness. We had built a life together, filled with dreams and promises. But then, there was the other Theo, the one who had whispered those dangerous words to me. I could still feel the warmth of his breath on my skin as he said, "I can't hide it anymore. I'm in love with you." My heart raced at the memory, a mix of exhilaration and fear. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Theo, the best friend. "Can we talk?" My stomach dropped. I knew we needed to address the tension that had been building between us. I hesitated, but ultimately replied, "Yes." "When?" "Who's that?" Theo asked, entering the kitchen. "Just a friend," I said, trying to sound casual. But the lie felt heavy on my tongue. "Okay," he said slowly, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Just be careful, all right? I know things have been off." I nodded, biting back the guilt that threatened to spill over. "I will. I promise." Later that evening, I met with Theo, the best friend, at a small cafe, a place we used to go when we were younger. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I felt my heart pounding as I sat down across from him. "Hey," he said softly, his eyes searching mine. "I've been thinking about us, about everything." "Me too," I admitted, feeling the weight of the moment. "But it's complicated." "I know it is," he replied, leaning in closer. "But I can't pretend anymore. I don't want to hide how I feel." The tension in the room was electric, and I felt my heart race. "What about Theo?" His expression shifted, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. "I care about him, but I can't help how I feel about you." I looked away, guilt washing over me in waves. "I can't do this. It's not fair to him." "Is it fair to you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You deserve to be happy, Elowen. Don't you see that?" I wanted to scream that I was happy once, but now, I didn't even know what happiness felt like. As the weight of my choices pressed down on me, I realized that the consequences of my decisions were not just mine to bear. They rippled out, touching everyone around me. I could almost feel the cracks forming in my once stable life, and I was terrified of what would come next. "Let's talk more," I finally said, feeling the gravity of the moment. "But we need to be careful." "Careful is all we can be," he replied, a hint of sadness in his smile. In that moment, I knew I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and the choice I had to make would determine whether I would soar or fall. The air felt heavy after the confrontation. I stood in the middle of my living room, the walls echoing the silence that hung between us. Theo, my husband, had left moments ago, his hurt evident in every step he took away from me. I was alone now, and the weight of my choices pressed down on my chest. I sank onto the couch, my heart racing. "What do I really want?" I whispered to myself. It was time to face the truth. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, letting the memories flood in. I thought about the love Theo and I had shared, the laughter, the quiet evenings spent together, and the dreams we had built. But beneath those memories, I could feel the cracks forming. Then there was Theo, my best friend. Every moment spent with him felt electric. The way he made me laugh, the way he listened. He saw me in a way I had not felt in a long time. I remembered the whispered confessions, the shared hopes, and the warmth of his touch. I couldn't deny it anymore. My heart was torn between two worlds. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the coffee table, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was a message from Theo, the best friend. "Can we talk?" it read. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen. What would we say? Would it make things clearer or just complicate everything even more? Finally, I replied, "Yes. When and where?" He responded quickly, "Meet me at the park in an hour." I took a moment to collect my thoughts. I needed to be honest with him, but I also had to be honest with myself. As I got ready, I stared into the mirror. "You can do this, Elowen," I said softly. "You need to figure out what you really want." Arriving at the park, I spotted Theo sitting on a bench, his face troubled. As I approached, he looked up, and our eyes locked. There was a moment of silence as the weight of everything hung between us. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Hey," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. We sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of children playing in the background, serving as a stark contrast to the tension we felt. I finally broke the silence. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About us." Theo nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Me too. I can't help how I feel about you, Elowen. But I don't want to hurt you. Or Theo." I swallowed hard. I know. I feel the same way. But I also can't pretend that what we have isn't real. I don't know how to sort through this. Theo leaned closer, his voice urgent. "What do you want, Elowen? I need to know." Taking a deep breath, I opened my heart. "I want to be honest, with you and with myself. I love my husband, but I can't ignore what I feel for you. It's complicated." He looked down, processing my words. "I never wanted to come between you two, but I can't pretend I don't love you." The confession hung in the air, heavy with truth. I felt tears threaten to spill over. "I need to talk to Theo. I owe him that much. We have to figure this out together." Theo nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I want you to be happy, no matter what that looks like. Just promise me you'll be honest with him." "I promise," I said, feeling a sense of clarity wash over me. "I just hope he can understand." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow around us, I felt a flicker of hope. I might be facing a difficult path, but I knew I had to walk it. Love was never simple, but I was ready to embrace the complexity of my feelings. We stood up, and I took one last look at him. "Thank you for being patient with me, Theo." He smiled softly. "Always." With that, I walked away from the park, feeling a little lighter. I still had a long way to go, but I was ready to face whatever came next. Honesty was my new dawn, and I was determined to find my way through this emotional maze. Share this story if you believe that love can conquer even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about a time when unexpected feelings changed your life, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one.